the persecuted of the earth. He says, the Jews, he came here when the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem by Roman tyranny in 70 AD. The first Jewish migrants came to India. And there has been from that time onwards flourishing, very small Jewish community in India. And they were very well treated. In fact, in New York, a few years back, in the Indian consulate, they celebrated Diwali and Hanukkah together. And so there were some rabbis who spoke, and I was asked to speak on behalf of Hinduism. I noted that the Israeli Consul General, he said, I have to listen to the sad experiences of the Jewish diaspora across the world, how they have been miserably treated in different countries at different times in history. Except one place. He says, all the Jews I meet who come from India, they have no complaint at all. They are very happy with the way they have lived for centuries. It's now nearly 2,000 years since the Jewish settlements have been there. Some of the oldest synagogues in the world are there in India. And then Swami Vivekananda says, the Parsis, when they are fleeing religious persecution in their country, in Persia, and they came to India, the Zoroastrians, the ancient Zoroastrian religion. In India we know them as the Parsis. They came and settled down in India. In fact, recently, just 2 months ago in New York, I was a speaker at the World Zoroastrian Congress. So Zoroastrians from 16 nations, 1,200 Zoroastrians had gathered together in that hall. And they call India their motherland. So, in fact, 3 countries where there are major settlements of Zoroastrians. Maximum India, much smaller in Pakistan, even smaller in Iran. These are the 3 main areas where they are left. And I'm sure today, if Swami Vivekananda were here today, he would have been so happy to see and know how the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the huge Tibetan diaspora have so harmoniously and beautifully settled in India and made it their home in exile from Tibet. So this is the tradition of India. This is what has to be, but this is our message to the world. Especially Shri Ramakrishna's message of harmony. Before I go on to Shri Ramakrishna's message of harmony of religions, I have to say, Shri Ramakrishna's message of harmony is nothing unique, nothing innovative. It's just a condensation and a restatement and a re-emphasis of what is already there in Hinduism, of what is already there in India. Not only ekam satvipra bahuda vadanti. We all know, everybody knows who's from India. Vasudhaiva kutumbakam. The whole world. We are all relatives, we are one family. A harmonious family, sometimes fighting with each other a little bit. But we are all one family. And that comes from the Upanishad. It's called the Maha Upanishad. There, Ayam Nija Ayam Paraiti Ganana Laguchetasa. Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That's the line. These are my people. And those are others. Such is the thought of petty minds. Of petty minds. For those who are liberal and big of heart, for them the entire world is one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And in the Parliament of India, you will see in the entrance it's written Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The entire world is one family. So it's been there from most ancient times. In the Shiva Mahimna Stotra, one of the most favorite stotras which is recited by the devotees of Shiva. There is one very famous shloka. Trayi Sankhya Yogam Pashupati Matam Vaishnavamiti Prabhinne Prasthane Paramidamada Pathyamiti Cha Ruchinam Vaichitryat Rijukutila Nana Pathajusham Nrinameko Gamya Tvamasi Payasam Arnava Iva. Very beautiful hymn. And the Shiva Mahimna Stotra is one of the most beautiful Sanskrit hymns. But this particular shloka verse, it means the Vedas, the path of the Pashupati, those who worship Shiva as Pashupati, Vaishnava, the path of the worshippers of Vishnu, which will include all the worshippers of Rama and all the worshippers of Krishna. It's all Vaishnava. And then he says all others, the yoga path, the Sankhya path. And notice, Sankhya does not even believe in it, does not even talk about God. So all of them, they are like different paths going to you, the Lord. Why are there different paths? Ruchinam Vaichitra. Because we are different people. We have different tendencies, different attitudes to the world, and therefore we have different attitudes to God also. And so there are many, many paths to God. And they all lead to the ultimate goal, just as all rivers flow into the ocean. Such a beautiful hymn. And thousands of years old. And so millions of people in India, till this day, they recite it. So these ideas have been there throughout ancient India and medieval India. What Shri Ramakrishna did, that's what I'll talk about. I haven't started yet, but I am keeping an eye on it. What Shri Ramakrishna did was unique experiences he brought to bear in the late 19th century. Swami Tapasyanandaji, the vice president of the Ramakrishna mission, he said once that Shri Ramakrishna was a glutton for God. You have heard of people who are gluttons for food, foodies, we call them foodies. So Shri Ramakrishna, you might call him a gaudy, because he's a glutton for God, in the sense that the only one thing he was interested in, and he says, I swear on the name of a mother that all I know is God. I do not know anything except God. In Bengali, Mairi bolchi, ami ishwar chhara kichu jani na. And I know only God. Now what he did was, wherever he found genuine spirituality, he would go there. Within Hinduism, he was a devotee, everybody knows, he was a devotee of Kali. And they worshipped Shiva. If you go to the Dakshineshwar temple where he lived most of his life and he practiced his sadhana, you will see that place itself is very harmonious. The main deity is Kali. And then there are the 12 temples of Shiva. And then there is the Radha and Krishna temple. So there is Vaishnavism there, Shaktaism there, Shaivism there, all the different traditions of Hinduism. And this, if you go to any Hindu temple, now there are so many wonderful Hindu temples in the United States, you will notice this is a central theme in all the Hindu temples. There will be one deity, central deity. But all the other deities of all the other traditions in Hinduism, you will find they're all there also. And respected and worshipped. I'll come to that. What does that mean? I'll come to that. Not only that, in some of the temples in the United States especially, I've seen another beautiful feature. I saw recently, I was in Alabama. There was a temple, Hindu temple. There is, the central deity is Jagannath, Puri. But also, Subramanya is there, then Shiva and Durga and Kali and Saraswati. Also, Buddha, Bhagavan Buddha and Bhagavan Mahavira. In the same temple, the same Buddha who said, I don't believe in God, there, and worshipped and highly respected. So this is a unique thing about Hinduism, which is really useful and really would be beneficial for this world, but we have to understand it. And Sri Ramakrishna helps us to understand it. He went beyond the confines of Hinduism. His guru was Totapuri. Within Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta tradition also flows through him, which is why we are here. Which is why tomorrow we'll have a complete non-dual Vedanta class. Tomorrow, 2 classes. But besides Hinduism, he also explored Christianity. Not academically. He says, you remember at that time Calcutta was the capital of the British Empire. So he says that how the Englishmen worship God, I want to see that. Can you take me to a church? And he heard about Jesus and Mother Mary and prayed to Jesus as a Christian would pray, and had intense mystical experiences, which convinced him that all that he had found in the different paths of Hinduism, the same thing can be found in Christianity too. And then he goes on to practice Islam. And intensely, as a Muslim would, actually removing the pictures of the Hindu gods and goddesses from his room and living like a Muslim and practicing an intense mystical experience which convinced him that in this path too you reach the same goal. And then his famous dictum, Jato Mat Tato Pat, as many faiths, so many paths. What Sri Ramakrishna contributes to this dialogue today? See, let me set before you the problem. The problem is not clear to people because you are sort of think the same way as I think. There are a lot of people who don't think in this way. But the question is, how can all religions be true? They all say contradictory things. So one must be true and others must be false. Or all must be false. We have one senior Swami, an American gentleman, who became a monk long ago in 1960s. So I asked him, how did you, he comes from South Carolina, how did you in 1960s become a Vedanta monk, a Hindu monk? He said, I grew up pretty religious, but what I found was that every church was criticizing every other church. And they're saying that we'll go to heaven, but everybody, even the church across the street, they're all going to go to hell. And as a youngster, this seemed improbable to me, and he said, I thought, well, maybe they are all wrong, and stopped being interested for some time. Then later, he came across a book, Vedanta for the Western World. And there, when he read it, he said, I was thunderstruck. And I realized, there's another option. Maybe they are all right. In a certain sense, all of them are right. It's not that one is wrong and one is correct and everybody else is wrong. Not even that all are wrong. Rather, it could be that they're all right, in a very deep sense. This is the problem. Professor Francis Clooney at Harvard University, he is a reputed and genuinely deep scholar. He's a scholar of Hinduism. Vishishtadvaita Vedanta is studied for 40 years. And yet, many people, you may not know that he's actually a Jesuit priest. He's a practicing, preaching Catholic priest. Now, look at the problem. He has written a wonderful book which he launched, Reading the Hindu and Christian Classics Together. This is a book about reading 3 Hindu texts, ancient Hindu texts, 3 ancient Christian texts together. And he launched it. It was an online event because of COVID. I was part of the online audience, and it was online. There were 2 respondents, 2 eminent scholars, one of Judaism, one of Christianity, academic scholars, one from England and one from somewhere in the United States. One of the scholars made a remark which might surprise all of us, but that's the common reaction to this. This scholar said to Professor Clooney, "No, all right, you have written this book, but what's the point of it? See, after all this study, the point is at the end you must decide this one is correct and all the others are wrong, isn't it?" We will be surprised. We don't think in that way. The point of studying all the religions is to decide one is correct and all others are wrong? No. But this is a prevalent kind of thinking. I am showing the problem. Another more stark example, which in the World Parliament of Religions in 2018 in Toronto, I was there, and many huge events now. So multiple parallel sessions are going on, but we had a unique teacher, a unique presenter, someone from a very conservative evangelical background from the United States. So he had gone to give a talk. Generally, they do not participate in multi-faith events. So he was giving a talk and it was very popular. So a lot of people, everybody wanted to know what he's going to say. So the room was crowded and people sitting on the carpet. And I still remember what he told us, and it shocked the audience there. He said, the 2 fundamental things which we are trying to do is, 1, to live our lives as Jesus Christ has taught us. 1. 2, to tell all others that they are wrong and to bring them to our path. Now see, you're laughing, but it's common sense to him. So I asked him the question, the first thing you said, that's beautiful. I totally agree with this. To live life as Lord Jesus Christ has taught us. But do you think it's equally important to go around telling people they're wrong and then bring them to this particular path? And he just shrugged, he said, yeah, I know, but that's what we are taught and that's what we do. So this is This is the problem which we're facing. One teacher I met recently in New Hampshire, she teaches a religion class in a college, and she said that, see, different paths to God realization, it's a great idea, but if I tell my students what is their reaction, I said, what reaction? The reaction is, oh, there are different paths to God realization, that means God doesn't exist. I said, what? I don't understand that. That's just the opposite of the way we think. We think that if there is any such thing as God, if religion is at all true, then all the religions in some way, they must share in that truth. But their thinking, we must understand the thinking of people who don't accept this. Their thinking is, if God is true, there must be one true path to God. If now you're saying all paths are true, then God is not true. See, this is the problem. And that's why you see that what Shri Ramakrishna has to give is really worthwhile. It's very relevant, even today, worldwide. Okay, now I will start. What does Shri Ramakrishna have to say? Just 5 points, I'll be quick about this. 5 points, 5 takeaways from this talk today. Sri Ramakrishna's contribution to the harmony of religions. The first thing Sri Ramakrishna teaches is that God, whatever word you use, is infinite, limitless. And one beauty about Sri Ramakrishna's teachings is he gives these extraordinary parables which you'll never forget. You might forget all the theory, but the parables you'll never forget. So he says, imagine there is a little ant and it comes upon a mountain of sugar. And the ant will delight, wow, mountain of sugar. And then it goes and gets hold of 1 grain of sugar and with a lot of effort drags it to its little hole and looks back and says, I'll come back and take all of it. No, the ant can't do that. That's far beyond the capacity of the ant. Impossible. And it need not do that because that 1 grain of sugar is enough to fill its tummy. Sri Ramakrishna sometimes, once he says, drunkard doesn't need all the wine in the wine shop to get drunk. Just need enough to get drunk for that one person. So similarly, the ultimate reality is infinite. And when we talk about it, religions of the world talk about it, they talk about some aspect of it. How does this work? So somebody asked him, Sri Ramakrishna, is God with form or without form? That was a big debate in those days in Calcutta because there was reform movements going on in Hinduism. There was criticism of Hinduism. Hindus worship God in images and in different forms. So that's not right. We should not have any images. So that's why the question was a big question in those days. And somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, is God with form or without form? He says both. How can it be that two things are contradictory, with form and without form? And look at the beautiful examples he gives. He says, well, water in the ocean. And there are places in the ocean because of intense cold, the water freezes into icebergs of different shapes. They're all the same water, literally the same water, but the shapes are now, they have taken shape and they are different. And he says, similarly, because of the intense devotion of the devotee, intense love of the devotee, that formless reality can appear to the devotee, can be experienced in various forms. And they are all that same one reality. So it is both formless and with form. So this is how you see the infinite aspects of God, they are reconciled. And because this infinite reality is beyond the capacity of the human mind to comprehend or human language to express. In Vedanta we say, avam manasagochara, beyond conception and beyond speech. Therefore, when we try to conceive of it, when we try to speak of that reality, we means mystics who have had experiences, they will use different language. They will use different philosophies, different theologies. There, the ancient saying now becomes relevant. The truth is one, but the wise speak of it differently. Sri Ramakrishna's famous example, he says, Pukur in Bengal, in villages, there are big ponds which are sources of water for the whole village. So, in fact, Sri Ramakrishna's birthplace, Kamar Pukur, Pukur is a pond, derives its name from that. So Sri Ramakrishna says, look, in the Pukur, in the pond, the Hindus go there and they call it jal, which is the Bengali word for water. And the Muslims go there and they call it pani. And the Englishmen go there and they call it water. Jal, pani, water are different words, but they all refer to the same reality. Similarly, when you worship God, call it Brahman and Vishnu and Shiva and Devi and Allah and Father in heaven and Jehovah. These are different names for the same reality. Simple but powerful teaching. The truth is one, the wise express it in different ways. The second point which Sri Ramakrishna makes here is that not only is that infinite reality and that it is beyond the capacity of language, beyond the capacity of thought. It's not just the different words. Even when we try to understand that reality, our understanding is also different. That's why we keep thinking there are different gods or different realities. He gives a beautiful example of the chameleon. And people say, there is a strange creature which lives on the branches of this tree. It is red. Another person said, you are right, but it's not red. I saw it. It was green. A third person says, no, it's not red or green. I saw it. I tell you, it's yellow. And they started quarreling among each other. And then they said, there's a fellow who lives under the tree. Let's go and ask him. So they went and asked that fellow who lived under the tree. And he said, you are all right. It is sometimes red, sometimes green, sometimes yellow, sometimes it's colorless. It's a chameleon. Which means it can appear very contradictory to us, that ultimate reality. With form, without form, personal, impersonal. But it's all the same reality. Because it's beyond our capacity to conceive, therefore it's the same reality. It can be expressed in different philosophies. Second point which Sri Ramakrishna makes is that this infinite reality, which can be thought of in different ways, expressed in different language, this is the goal of life. Our goal is God realization. And religions of the world are different paths of God realization. The goal of religion also is God realization. He gave a beautiful parable. You have come to the mango orchard. Your aim is to eat a mango. Will you spend time counting the leaves in the tree and the branches and the roots? And first eat the mango and be satisfied. Similarly, all other details are secondary. The goal of human life is God realization, Sri Ramakrishna used to say. Swami Vivekananda put it this way: the goal is to manifest the divinity already within us. You can do it in different religions. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. And to reach that divinity, that is the purpose of human life, and that is the purpose of religion also. Small point, but very significant. What's our goal? God realization. And we might say, no, my goal is not God realization. My goal is to make $1 million on Wall Street, or my goal is to get a PhD from an Ivy League college, or my goal is, to start a family, get married, have children, start a family. This is my goal. But Vedanta says that what are we trying to achieve in all these goals? There's a common basis, there's a common drive towards fulfillment, overcoming unhappiness, overcoming suffering, and attainment of fulfillment. That's what we are all trying to do. When Sri Ramakrishna, when the spiritual teachers of the world, they say religion is taking you to the goal, God realization is the goal, it's the same goal, which we all have. If we do it wisely, we will try to do it through spirituality. If we do it otherwise, then all the other different ways in which we are trying in life. Sri Ramakrishna put it this way: ones and zeros. Whatever you do, if you pile a lot of zeros together, it's still zero. But if you put a 1 before the zeros, every zero has value. 1 zero is 10, 2 zeros is 100, and so on. And if you don't have any of the zeros, you still have the 1. The 1 is, put a most general term, spirituality. And call it God, devotion, knowledge, meditation, service, whatever your form of spirituality, whichever religion, but some kind of deep spirituality. Then everything else in life will fall in place. So that's what Sri Ramakrishna means by saying the goal of human life is God realization, and the goal of these religions is God realization. Third point, these are all pieces, 5 pieces, and they'll fit together and give you Sri Ramakrishna's very coherent and extraordinary insight into the harmony of religions. Third piece of the puzzle, he says, there are many religions. They are all paths to God realization. His famous dictum, Jato mat tato path. As many faiths, so many paths to God realization. So point number 3, you can see how the whole strategy is coming together. Point 3 is, all of these religions, they will take you, the whole purpose of the religions is God realization, central purpose. There are many other purposes, but the central purpose is spirituality, God realization. And these are all different paths to God realization. This is crucial. Seeing religion not as the ultimate truth, seeing religion as a path to the truth. The moment you do that, then it's difficult to quarrel. So my religion is true, all other religions are false, and fight about that. But it's very silly to say my path is true, all other paths are false. You see, you all come to the church here. All of us, we came by different paths. It's silly to say my path is true, all these paths are wrong. No. As long as they have got you to the goal, they're correct. They all worked. As many faiths, so many paths. Sri Ramakrishna's doctrine. He says to people coming to visit him in the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar, he says, some of you have come by boat across the Ganga. Some crossed the bridge, some came by horse carriage, some walked here. But in the end, you have all come here. In the same way, he says, Hindus and Christians and Muslims and Buddhists and all followers of all religions will surely, they will all reach the goal. Same goal, same attainment, not lower or higher, same thing they will reach. Another example he says about going to the roof of the house. So he says, you can, remember those were days before elevators. So you can climb up through on the wooden staircase, you can take the stone staircase, you can take the bamboo stairs outside, or you can even climb up with a rope if you like. But you can all get to the roof of the house in different ways. So all these religions are different ways of God realization. Then it becomes silly to claim that then one way is correct and the others are wrong. It's just a matter of where we are, which culture we are born into, what our preferences are, which appeals to me, and take that up and follow it. Then the fourth point, which will seem to be just the opposite of what was just said. It is true that there are different ways to God realization, Sri Ramakrishna said. But one must follow one sincerely. In Bengali he said, Mat path, kintu ektike dhore thakte hai. Mat means faith. Path is like the English path. But you must hold on to one. It's just like driving here. Once I come to the beautiful understanding, oh, there are different paths to the church. Let me keep trying different paths. You'll get scolded by Google Maps or whatever it is based in. Stick to the route. Come back to the route. But the lady scolds you. You go round and round like that. He gave the example, the parable of the man who was digging for water. So he was digging for water. It's hard work. And somebody told him, try there. You're working so hard. So he stops here, goes there and starts digging there. And try there. And at the end of the day, he has dug for water in 6 different places, shallow pits. He has met nowhere he found water. But if he had stuck to the first place where he was sure of finding water, he could have found water there. So one must dig deep. One must follow something sincerely for a considerable period of time. The harmony of religions doesn't mean that you follow different religions on different days of the week. It means that you must follow a particular path while knowing that all other paths also lead to enlightenment, to God realization. And this is important. In a conference recently, see how it strikes different people. You know, this is scholar, religion scholar, young scholar from Lithuania. He was listening to all this talk. I was just saying these points. When I came to this point, that like the parable of the well digger, and you must hold on to one, he was excited. He told me that, this is very important. Why? Because without this, just that always lead to God, it feels a little superficial or cheap. You are cheapening religion. This is my professor used to say this. Anything goes, new age kind of thought. That's a kind of cheapening of religion. Shri Ramakrishna was dead serious. One and one goal only, God realization, enlightenment. That's what matters. But these are different paths. You must hold on to one sincerely. Then the fifth part of the whole puzzle, the last point, is that he says, while holding on to one sincerely, you must know that the same Lord you are worshipping, in whatever your path is also present. And say, as Shiva of the Shaivites, as Vishnu or Narayana of the Vaishnavites, as the Father in heaven of the Christians, as Allah of the Muslims, exactly the same one. And therefore you have deep respect. You can, like Vivekananda says, I will go and with the Christians and kneel before the cross. I will go with the Muslims into the mosque and pray, kneel down with them and pray. I will sit with the Hindu, I'm quoting from his words, sit with the Hindu in meditation to discover the light within their heart. And all other methods and paths which will come in the future, they're all welcome too. So this is Sri Ramakrishna's attitude towards different religious ideals. One parable he would use is the relationship between the daughter-in-law and members of her in-law's family. So the daughter-in-law who is married and comes into a family, she has a special, unique relationship with her husband. And through that relationship, she has a relationship with her father-in-law, mother-in-law, brothers and sisters-in-law, and she loves and respects all of them, but it all depends on the unique relationship she has established with her husband. Similarly, with your special path, with your unique tradition, which in Sanskrit there's a term called Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata. Ishta means your desired ideal. So it might be in your community, in your tradition, or you might have consciously chosen one Ishta Devata by taking initiation in some other tradition. But that becomes your special path. That Ishta Devata, through that I have a relationship with all forms of God, all forms of worship. I know that my Ishta Devata, suppose my Ishta Devata is Krishna, I know my Krishna alone is being worshipped as Shiva by the Shaivites, is being worshipped as Father in heaven by the Christians. It is the same divinity present everywhere. That's why it's very easy for Hindus to be pretty relaxed about wide differences in religion. So in a small village, you don't need great amount of theology for that. Small village, somebody is a Vaishnavite, chants the name of Radha Krishna. But while passing by the Shiva temple also will do. So one knows that is Ishta Devata for that community. Similarly, so when the Hindus come in contact with other religions, Christians, Muslims, Jews, they say, oh, I see, for them their Ishta Devata is this. And it's my Lord alone who is being worshipped there in that way. It's acceptable. Quickly, the 5 key parts of Sri Ramakrishna's teaching on the harmony of religions. Infinitude of God. Remember the ant and the mountain of sugar. And therefore can be expressed in many, many ways. Can be